Welcome, everyone, to another episode of our live session on Saturday night at 8 p.m., where we talk to you doctors about various topics. And tonight we are going to have a special guest whom I'll introduce a bit later. And he is an expert in cyber risk, cybersecurity, and it's something all of us doctors need to be aware of because this is a very real threat and he's not none other than Mr. Andrew Taylor, who is the Asia Pacific Head of Cyber with Chubb Insurance. Okay, while waiting for more of you guys to come on board during our live session, um, let me play a little short clip from our friends at Dr. Shield, who have been so kind to arrange these series of CPD sessions as well as guests for some of our Saturday night live sessions. So just a little word from Dr. Shield. Okay.
We're Dr. Shield, and we do insurance differently than most companies. Things like simplifying details so it's easy to understand what makes us Malaysia's most innovative indemnity provider. As a Dr. Shield client, you'll enjoy comprehensive coverage with fewer exclusions. With some insurers, you'll only find out what's not covered when you make a claim. Our policy details are online and easy for everyone to understand. Competitive premiums that don't keep increasing. Many insurers increase their premiums across the board to compensate for losses. Dr. Shield limits the number of doctors insured from high-risk categories, so our premiums start fair and stay fair. Prompt dispute resolutions. We're pro-mediation because settlement and negotiation, instead of endless litigation, is better for everyone. Career and reputation protection. Typically, litigation can drain a doctor financially and emotionally. We limit the damage by both, so our clients emerge good names intact. And peace of mind, because a happy doctor is a good doctor. Our different approach to creating policies means we put you first, before us, so you can enjoy your career and sleep like a baby, even if you've just delivered one. Dr. Shield. Insurance with a difference.
Okay, thank you for staying with us. Now, before I introduce our guest, we are broadcasting to you guys at our Facebook group as well as our YouTube channel. So those of you on Facebook, if you've got questions for Mr. Taylor, you can ask on Facebook. But if you prefer, you could also ask us on Slido. So just to be prepared, you can go to slido.com and enter the event code 33799. And then when you join us there later on, feel free to ask us any questions, particularly Andrew Taylor. If you have any questions on the cybersecurity or you're concerned about hacking and so on. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce my guest from Singapore, Mr. Andrew Taylor, who's the Asia Pacific Head of Cyber with Chubb Insurance. Hi, Andrew.
How are you? Good evening.
I'm fine. How are you doing tonight? You okay?
Yeah, doing very well, thanks. Doing very well. Nice down here in Singapore. Been a nice day. I've actually been out walking for the day, so enjoyed some fresh air, which is good.
Yeah, great. It's same here. Weather has been quite good. It's cool, rainy a little bit, but at least we can go outdoors with masks. I mean, things have changed a lot, but I think one of those things that haven't changed is hacking. And I think in view of the COVID pandemic, there's been a lot of online activity, especially even us in the medical fraternity, where instead of real meetings, we've got webinars, Zoom meetings, and so on. And I think a lot of our activity is online. So I think it's timely that we are aware of what are the online threats which are there today. So it'll be nice to hear what you have to say, being an expert in this area.
Yeah, look, no, thanks very much. I've been doing this for 12 years, and thanks for the kind introduction. I heard expert in the area and expert in cybersecurity, not so much expert in cybersecurity, I'd say. I think I'm extremely well qualified in the cyber insurance and this industry. So I'm hoping tonight with this opportunity to get a lot of questions from your listeners, because I think that's the easiest way to answer and dispel some of the myths out there about cyber insurance, but also cyber risk. There's a big myth out there that it won't happen to us, and I think that's clear for a lot of small businesses, and I put GPs into that space. Just seeing the clip about Dr. Shield and the mitigation approach as opposed from litigation, or mediation as opposed from litigation, I think it stands true, because we know doctors' cash flow and reputations are at risk from these factors, and we see small businesses being hit very hard, particularly through the pandemic, when threat actors have been preying on people's desire for information to understand COVID-19 and actually tricking people to download malware. So we've seen a number of claims this year for small business that are actually crippling and really erode cash flow. So I'm happy to kind of talk about some of these things as well.
Okay. Let me share is it all right if we share Andrew's got something very interesting to show us.
Yeah, so I thought I'd start off first. What I've done is speaking to Alan yesterday, and even JA, and trying to understand what might be of interest. I've got some slides, but I thought what you see on the screen here, and for me, very interesting. This is a real-time threat map. This is one by Kaspersky Labs, you might have heard. And these lines are showing the actual pieces of malware that are being projected around the world at this very moment. Okay, so it's a free map you can look up. It's as you can see, I'm just moving around at the moment, and forgive me, I'll find in here somewhere. I did it for Malaysia. Oops, sorry, I'll skip my mouse. Malaysia's over here, I believe. There we go. So you'll see at the moment, at this very moment, Malaysia is the 20th most attacked country in the world. So I put this on here really to highlight. This is a credible third-party website, and I can send Alan you the link to share with the viewers, the listeners. But credible information about real attacks that are happening at the moment around the world. Each one of them could potentially cost a small business their livelihood because their cash flow that gets eroded. So I thought it was just a very interesting way to start. Forgive me, I'll go off that, and what I'll do now is I'll start off with a little bit of a presentation, and hopefully we can get some questions that come through that doesn't have me talking to the presentation all night, but happy to talk about this forever. Okay, so from now you should be seeing and forgive me while I just play with another monitor I have here. You should be seeing a lovely orange slide. The link in this slide deck is Kaspersky Labs down the bottom right, and I've embedded some YouTube clips as well that highlight a little bit more about just common fallibilities with cybersecurity that might be worthwhile to look at. But I'll go first. I'm going to talk about Chubb and experience. We're in this space, and I certainly don't want this session to be about Chubb. This is about trying to provide information to yourselves, the GPs, about what this threat is, and hopefully have you understand that it's very, very real and costly. I'm going to talk about some of the myths that people have, and hopefully they're some of the sentiments that you might be thinking in the back of your mind about cyber and why you should be worried about it, or potentially why you don't think you should be worried about it at all. I'm going to try and dispel some of those myths. I'm going to use a survey that we've done. We did a survey. I've got some statistics of 1,400 small businesses across the region. 400 of those were in Malaysia, and we do have specific statistics about Malaysia. Okay, so I think very insightful as well. I'm going to talk specifically about what a good cyber insurance policy has and what you get as an optional extension within the Dr. Shield product as well. And I'm going to go through some claims examples, and hopefully you can relate them to your business, and then any questions. But I'm happy for the questions to come through and for me to go off script with this slide deck. Okay, so with luck, I can finish speaking on the slides in about 30 minutes, and happy to stay on and answer as many questions that come through. So quickly about Chubb. We've been underwriting this class for over 20 years. We do operate in 50 countries. 300 million individuals have been affected by cyber incidents we've responded to. We do have over 450 employees in the region We have over 50 underwriters at the moment that can look after cyber insurance. In Malaysia, we have a dedicated team based in Kuala Lumpur, and globally, we've handled over 4,000 cyber claims. Okay, so sizable and a lot of knowledge in this space. And I say this because this product has really only been it's been in existence for just over 20 years, and I launched the product in Asia actually just over 10 years ago. So it's really only been something that people can buy 10 years ago in this region. I talked briefly about the survey, just some of the statistics on the survey we're going to run. Hope you find it interesting because it's specifically about Malaysia, Malaysian sentiment, SMEs, which I think all the listeners would fall into that SME category. And we asked for some real life questions in 2018 and then 2019. This year we failed to do a survey because the pandemic just limited our ability to reach out and get the information in hand. So some of the myths, I will go to that. My company is not exposed to cyber attacks. We know that's not true. Hopefully that YouTube clip I showed you highlights that these attacks are happening every day. This year in particular, we've had major law enforcement agencies actually tell us and write to us that they're concerned because of the increase in attacks that are coming through, because threat actors are now preying on individuals' desire for more information around COVID, and they're actually downloading more malicious links accidentally. And there's a key tip just in those statements about why you should be worried about cyber. And the first thing I say is because it's not an IT issue. It's not something you're outsourcing to your managed service provider, your IT company or IT team. And the reason it's not is because it's usually innocent employees accidentally downloading links that have been tricked into believing are real links that are embedding malware and causing the disruption to small businesses and doctors. And it's very, very disrupting. That links into I outsource all my IT, so I have no risk. It's just not true. Your reputation, your business, your practice is certainly at risk when you can't provide the information your patients need. They don't blame Amazon or Google or Swiss Army or IBM or any one of the outsourcing companies you're using to run your practice. They blame you because you're the person who they've gone to. You're the person they trust and respect with their records, and you're the person they hope can treat them and contain whatever worries they do have. So by saying this is something that's being looked after by your outsourcing service provider is not true at all. And I've got a little slide that kind of highlights, hopefully in a humorous way, that point. Cyber attacks are only a problem for big companies. Again, the SME surveys we've got, we're happy to circulate them, indicate certainly not true. Smaller businesses actually have fewer resources and are more time poor to worry about the security needed and the training needed to keep malicious actors, threat actors out of your network. So actually the low-hanging fruit that cyber criminals are after is the small business, is the GP. And GPs yourselves, the information that you hold on behalf of your patients has a higher value than other piece of information companies collect, because it's personal health information, okay? Can be very reputational damaging for your patients if it's released for you as GPs as well. Okay, so criminals know that that data is worth some money. Criminals know they can use that data to go and commit further crimes with it. And criminals know as a small business, you probably don't have the security of large organizations. So it might be easier to attack yourselves and take a small amount of money from a lot of people rather than try and attack a large company, for instance, like Chubb, where they'd have to spend a lot of time and money trying to break into our network, potentially for what they see as might be a larger payday. So smaller businesses are certainly at risk. And lastly, cyber insurance is just too expensive or don't have a budget. This perception's changing. It's changed greatly over the last 10 years. We've seen demand this year, even with people in various movement control orders, working from home orders, and also operations being shut down through the pandemic, are actually finding budget to buy more cyber insurance than ever before. Ourselves, growth is a 36% increase in buying habits. Inquiries through our business around the region are also up 30% on last year. So it's not, I know the good team at JA Assure can also help with cost. Costing, I believe, can be around 1,500 ringgit it starts from, and there's various ranges. I know Jafar and JA will be launching something either later this year or early next year to make it even more affordable and easier for Malaysian GPs to purchase, and we're happy to help. And I work with the JA Assure team to help you understand what we're offering or what Chubb offers to make this a low cost, low pain piece of risk management to help you offering good service to your patients. I just said, this is one misconception. I said, you have nothing that I want. As a GP, nothing could be further from the truth. And I think what happens as humans, we forget the value of the data we deal with every day, because for us, it has no real value. Every day we use the same piece of data and we forget it's actually worth money to someone. So this slide is just trying to highlight that there is a market for data on the dark web. So criminals aren't trying to break into your network to steal money. Sometimes, yes, and there's a different type of attack vector they use if they think they want your money. So that's your accounts payable or receivable. They might try and break into and fool you into paying someone else illegally. That's not really what cyber insurance is about. It's about the damage they cause to your network when they steal data and they take that information and then sell it. So we've got fake IDs and passports are worth between $25 and $5,000. Real passports $1 to $35. Stolen cloud accounts $12. Ransomware, there's a toolkit you can buy for $250. We have to think for GPs, because you have personal health information, it has a higher value than just a fake ID, okay? Because that data is non-perishable generally. So they're looking to take the data because they know they can sell that to commit further crimes, and that's what their interest in you is. So to think as a small business or a GP, you have nothing that a criminal would want, is nothing can be further from the truth. The data that you collect is what they're after, because it enables the criminals to then go and build fake IDs, to go and commit further crimes and make more money. And in the process, they're going to vandalize your computer system to a point where you can no longer use it, and then you won't be able to look after your patients until your database or your IT network is operational again. I sort of show a quick slide about the human side, the human error of cybersecurity. So we have the human error in the corner, and here's the reason that all the security that maybe your outsourced service provider tells you they have in place, they're the reason that all that was circumvented and malware was allowed into your network. So this is really trying to say you cannot just rely on your outsourced service provider, your managed service provider, to look after your network. You also have to engage in training your employees and letting them know and understand that the threats of clicking on malicious or untrusted links are very real. The threats of not treating that data that your patients have given you so trustingly, the threat of losing that has a very, very vast reputational damage. So the reason why you can't really rely on antivirus is because antivirus is reactionary. I said, and I think as GPs, you should understand this, they can only produce a vaccine once the virus has already been in the wild. And no real this year is that true. So we create the antivirus after we're aware of the attack and the malware that's circulating around the population, the IT population. So it's always one step behind. There is some newer next generation antivirus now that's out there. And if you're investing in that, it's a very, very good tool, because it doesn't just look for one signature of what a virus is. It pieces together different attack vectors or tactics threat actors might use to predict a potential attack. Zero-day vulnerabilities. These are vulnerabilities in malware that exist that the creators do not know exists. And this is why they use patches, and they patch very regularly. So these vulnerabilities can actually cost up to $100,000 on the dark web. And when criminals use them, there is no defense to them, because even the creator of these software applications didn't know it existed. So these 0 days have happened in Apple operating software, Microsoft, Adobe, so big office software applications that we all use. They've all had 0 days that have been used to compromise, threat actors used to compromise networks and cause damage. Outsourcing, I said, is not the cure to cybersecurity. It's a human problem. It's a business owner, GP problem. Is because 50% of the losses we've seen come from insiders or trusted vendors. Okay, so it's not just the IT, it's your staff, it's yourselves trying to please your patients, or what you believe are patients, because they're being tricked by the threat actors to giving away this information, or opening up, a potential weakness in your computer network to steal or encrypt data. This is the social engineering piece. Really, con men are tricking us to clicking these links, and no more this year have they been more successful with the human race's desire to understand COVID, to understand potential government subsidies or support, financial support many governments have been offering. And they use these fake email links. Once you click on that link or open that link, malware is put into your network that encrypts your network, your data, and causes no end of damage. And also, if you're using large outsources, there's a contractual mismatch. The fine print in that click-through contract is really not in a small GP's favour. So when you rely on that outsourcer and blame them for your network going down, generally they say, oh, sorry, it was your fault, and you don't get compensation. So you're left with cash flow problems to fix the problem, while you potentially then fight and dispute that larger outsourcing contract you use. So outsourcing is not a solution to this. In terms of our small business survey, I said this is a 2019 survey, and you see Malaysia, 84% of the respondents had experienced a cyber incident in the past 12 months, the highest out of the 4 regions across the Asia-Pacific region. Okay, so we know that smaller businesses in Malaysia, GPs, their networks are being compromised, and they're using their own cash flow and resources to defend or protect and fix their networks. So we know SMEs, and I think this is part of the problem, SMEs are ignorant about cyber risk, and they're not investing in their defences. And I think it's because of the myths that I've just talked about. Hopefully this session, and forgive me, maybe you can think and say, yes, that's perception I've had about cyber risk, or that's perception I had about my network and who looks after it, especially because in your jobs, I'm sure you're more concerned about treating patients. You're also concerned about getting good results for your patients, because the IT system was something that supported that work. That's changing as threat actors are starting to realise we rely so much on computer networks. They're starting to realise that this is where they can make their money. So they're moving the business focus to making sure the network has to be correct in businesses, not just so you can just still get the good patient results. And we see this through the survey. We said 80%, 81% of SMEs are confident that they are prepared. But then we ask them, dig a little bit deeper there. 55% of those respondents say they don't actually understand the cyber threats they face. They understand there's no consistent underwriting what cyber means in their organisation. And they know they're not fully aware about the potential exposures from third-party vendors. So when we see that they're very confident they can defeat these risks, and maybe you're in this same boat, GPs, when you realise, how can you be confident when you actually don't understand how bad this problem is for your practice, and then how much it potentially costs? In Malaysia, again, this is again from our survey. The red boxes here are the Malaysia specific industry information, we should say. Human error, 48% of the incidents were from humans. Again, it's not a technology risk. Disruption of computer network, 44%, and then stealing data, 32%. Okay, this is what happened when they experience a cyber event. This is where you think what impact would have your business. So we asked SMEs what they thought. Again, Malaysia is in red. Relationships with customers would be affected. I think this is very, very true of GPs. That position of trust you have with your patients is destroyed. Okay, very, very costly for your business and your practice. Sales revenue, not over concerned in Malaysia, 49% are worried about that. Company profits, GPs, it's again a cash flow issue, and then reputation or standing in the market. Again, I know with GPs, this is very, very important. Their reputation, your standing with your patients, it's affected and it's of high concern in Malaysia. Malaysia Pacific only, we've heard about the 84% of victims. And again, I've talked about this. 67% believe this is a big corporation or large corporation issue. I'm hopefully after this session, you can realise or at least start to think this through, but we know it's not. And we know it's not because, again, of the cash flow that it costs your practice to fix the damage to your networks when these mistakes do happen. And then 40% of the businesses, they say they have experienced a breach of customer files in the past 12 months. That's a very staggering statistic. I'm not sure if that's true of the people listening tonight or listening to this webinar, but it said from our survey, a high number are still suffering these attacks. Most commonly experienced cyber incidents, I said human error, disruption to network, and ransomware. Ransomware is a big issue. Okay, ransomware is something, it's probably now the weapon of choice for threat actors, and it's sweeping around the globe. We're seeing it all over Asia. I can see one statistic I heard from our claims manager last week in a webinar. The claims that our Singapore branch has had in the last 12 months have increased 400% from last year, these cyber notifications. So we're certainly seeing notifications and threat actors active in this region. And common types of files that they're taking. Customer records, as said, for GPs, I think this is what they're after. They want that personal information of your patients. And I say it's because it's non-perishable information usually. So that means in 12 months, you can't order a new card for your patient and have their health records disappear. It stays there forever. So it enables those threat actors to build a credible profile that they can use to keep perpetrating further and future crimes. So just some statistics on what's going on around cyber. Hopefully got you thinking a little bit that as a smaller business, you have very important information. The information you hold is something threat actors want. Threat actors think smaller businesses are less protected, so low-hanging fruit, and ultimately they will cause cost to your business to limit or stop you from practicing whilst you prepare and restore your database to find patient records again. Role of insurance, I won't go into that one. I'll talk very clearly now about cyber insurance because I know in Dr. Shield, through J.O. Shaw, you do have access to some limited cyber insurance cover in that product. And also, I want to talk about cyber insurance because the term cyber means many things to many people, and also we're not to phrase it so it puts into the correct context for yourselves. So really we have to understand the insurance industry use the term cyber as a brand name. And it's a package policy that's really looking to provide protection for damage to your computer network and breaches of privacy, as well as offer business income relief. So it's a package policy. And I say that because you might have heard it be called cyber insurance. You might have heard it by people called cyber crime, or sorry, I should say cyber liability and cyber crime. I don't like to use those terms. I like to talk about it as cyber insurance because a good cyber insurance policy offers components of liability and first-party covers within one package. Okay, so it's not just cyber, it's not first-party or third-party, it's a package policy. So it does cover first-party expenses. I said it can cover your business interruption costs. So that's the time or lost billings you've suffered because you cannot treat patients effectively. Okay, so it covers that cost. It covers the cost of recovering and understanding what happens to your patient records, and also potential liability claims that may be brought against you from your patients because of future loss they suffer because the information has been leaked or made public. It does fill the gaps in traditional insurance policies. So if you're buying a property insurance policy or property package for your practice at the moment, it would have business interruption cover within it, but that business interruption cover would not respond if you suffered a ransomware attack or a cyber malware attack. And the reason it doesn't respond is because that property insurance policy needs to have a tangible trigger to respond to the business interruption claim. So it's usually, it could be a fire, a flood, a theft, that something tangible has been broken or blown over or blown up, excuse me, and then it responds. Because ransomware attacks or malware is intangible, there's a gap in that program. So your business interruption cover is not providing you full protection anymore. Okay, so a little bit about cyber insurance. And this slide, and forgive me, it's a very, very busy slide. I'm going to talk to the areas of cover that are in a good cyber insurance policy, and then very quickly highlight the differences between this cover and the cover that you're currently getting as an extension in your cyber, your Dr. Shield policy. Okay, so from the left right, we have what we call incident response costs. So what you're really buying, and we've seen this around Asia and the region with cyber insurance, is you're actually getting access to experts who understand how threat actors and cyber criminals operate. These are people who are specialists in their field. They're not generalists like managed service providers, and they understand how to quickly clean your network and have minimum disruption to your practice. We offer legal advice, notification costs. I think very important for doctors, also access to public relations or crisis management consultants to help protect your reputation cover. I've talked about the business interruption loss and where it's not in your property policies that you buy. Data and recovery costs in the middle. This is the cost to restore, recover, or try to understand what might have happened to your records that the criminal has either encrypted or just stolen. It does take specialists to understand that. The cyber extortion cover, yes, this is for those ransomware claims you might have heard about. Then we have the liability covers there in blue. We have privacy and network liability. What we're saying is privacy if you've allowed, or yes, I say if you've allowed personal, non-public information to leave your possession, and you suffer a claim from that third party, it covers that. Or if you allow malware, we'll say, to leave your network and infect other parties, and you suffer a liability claim there, it responds to those two liabilities. And then there's media liability at the end. So a comprehensive package, and I didn't want to go through in too much detail, so hopefully that wasn't too quick, but I know JA and the team there are happy to talk about it, and I know the Chubb team's happy to talk to you a little bit more if you need. But just to highlight what's in a good policy and the main coverage features, and then we go to what you lose at the moment with the extension in Dr. Shield is these first party covers and the media cover, will lose some. So Dr. Shield is providing very good cover for you, and it offers some limited cyber cover for these liability costs and all defense costs that flow. Okay, so I thought it was a very easy way to do it. The Dr. Shield policy, extremely good policy for the medical malpractice and medical liability matters that you might be exposed to, and a small limit to protect you from that cyber liability. But as cyber threat has increased, it might be time to think about the cash flow protection that a good cyber policy can have. And I know Chubb, I know Jay are sure we're going to be offering price point and competitive cover for you. So please contact JA and they can give you a bit more information. And then in the cyber insurance policy in Malaysia, we offer all of this additional cover. And I think the most important out of these is the emergency incident response costs. Okay, so this is the cost you need when it is an absolute emergency to get an incident response manager that Chubb has a 24/7 hotline for. And we give you up to 48 hours worth of cover with that hotline, even if the incident is not actually triggered under the insurance policy. So very, very broad emergency cover, but needs to be an emergency. Betterment costs. This is where if you'll say your laptop is destroyed and the operating system destroyed in a cyber attack, which does happen, we've heard it happen very often, and you can no longer use it, we'll replace that to a better condition than the one that you might have been using. Cyber crime, we offer some sublimits for that theft of money. We offer you a limit for rewards if you want to post a reward to try and catch the perpetrator. And where criminals have hacked into your phone system and used it to make or rack up a lot of phone expense for you, we also cover to a sublimit that telecom fraud cover as well. So these are the additional sublimits again. And these sublimits also not in the additional add-on and sublimit we have in that Dr. Shield policy that JA does offer very well. Key differentials to cover, I think, between this and some of the add-ons and the endorsements you get in other policies is we don't acquire a prior approval for these forensic experts. So if you want to use your own experts and vendors, you can. We do know that GPs, small businesses, they like to rely on ours through that 27 response hotline app I have there. The emergency incident response I've talked about, we give you access to somebody within an hour, usually locally within region. Our claims authority is in the region. We have a massive panel of vendors I'll get to, and we do give you a free app. I don't want to talk about too much about this on that app. It's all about how you go to make a claim. And after this, I'll go through some case studies we can talk to about where this is important. But when you suffer an event, and I'll go through how these events happen and what they've cost small businesses very shortly, you can download an app, you can call us online or use a 24/7 hotline. We know GPs, we know small businesses. This is the service they want out of a good insurance policy. It's not dealing with the issues yourself and then have to claim back later. It's, as Chubb, we take this very, very seriously. You call us up, we put vendors on the case for you, and we work with you. So we allow you to keep servicing your patients while we work on trying to fix your computer network and get you back up and running as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So enough of that little piece on the wording. I apologise. Hopefully it wasn't too much, but I wanted to try and highlight where you can get that cash flow expense covered by an insurance policy at minimal cost. I'm not going to go to these two YouTube clips, but these two clips you'll see when we download links to you. Ultimately, if you look at them, they highlight through some simple humour, and you'll see how we as humans allow criminals to break into a network. They highlight why this is not an IT issue and why this is a very real risk that is affecting small businesses around the world, and we've seen it small businesses in Asia in particular. So we have first, I thought I'd start with a real claim. These are all real claims that Chubb clients have had. It's a healthcare claim, so I was hoping it's very relevant to this audience. Very clear, a medical centre suffered a ransomware attack after an employee clicked a malicious link to a phishing email. This is happening more and more this year. Excuse me while I have some water. They demanded 2 Bitcoins for each server that this practice had. The entire IT system of this clinic were impacted. They could not trade, and the patient diary systems were corrupted. They had missed or double booked patient appointments. The insured elected to engage with the bad actor, and they made the ransom payment through their IT vendor. In this instance, the insured did receive the decryption key and was able to successfully unlock their systems. Our experience suggests, and we know that's not always the case, when dealing with ransoms, you're dealing with career criminals. If you pay a ransom, you're likely to have to pay a ransom again when they corrupt your system again. Paying those 2 Bitcoins, I think a Bitcoin at the moment is worth about $12,000 US. So they would have had to pay $24,000 US and also pay the money to fix the hardware and the data that was corrupted. Okay, even though they got a decryption key, cost them $100,000 for this, and we do know there was substantial forensic costs that our insurance policy had to respond to. So we know that cost from 100 was even higher. Very, very simple attack. Key things you'll see in these claims is an employee clicked that malicious link. So the employee was tricked into clicking on a link that downloaded the malware that eventually moved through their network and encrypted and made their network inoperable. A retailer, again, an employee at a hardware store. Oh yes, this is actually an Australian claim. This one, employee at a hardware ignored internal policies. So another tip: do you have good internal governance and training of staff about links to use? Strong password policies. What about using or downloading applications? Are we using those? Okay, so they used it again. They ignored their government's policies that they thought were good. Again, they downloaded some malicious software. It disabled all their cash registers. They could no longer operate. They could no longer order stock. $170,000 this business had to suffer. It did include some business interruption loss and include their increased cost of working. So because the business was interrupted, property policy would not have responded to that. So they needed cyber insurance to cover that business interruption loss. And there's the last one, and I've got a bit of a timeline on this slide of what happened. This is a very similar scenario. It's a construction worker claim. It's a $5 million small business. Again, I don't think this is an Australian claim. I had it as Australian dollar slide. A construction company, they outsourced their IT operations. And again, they suffered a ransomware attack. Data was encrypted. Third-party hard drives that contain the data's backups are also encrypted. Very, very common. You think you back up your safe, but you're backing up the malware, which is destroying all the backups you have as well. So test your backups. Make sure they can be restored. Store your backups on tape separate to your main network, so it can't be destroyed by that malware. Just simple tips can help mitigate some of these claims happening. They had to re-enter all their data, and they were out of business for a significant time. So in this instance, we go through the timeline of actually how a policy responded. It's a package policy, and what really happened. So for us, we'd say we'd call the 24 response app or use an app that we offer all our insureds. In the policy, the first thing they'll be looking at is data and recovery expenses, because they had to lease new servers to help them operate. Okay, some cost there. Incident response expenses. They need specialists. They couldn't use their IT guy because they weren't the specialist that need to understand how the ransomware got into the backup system. They couldn't understand where it came from and how it got in the network. So they need specialists to investigate that, because then they need to prove the data had gone missing, and they need to understand who they might have to tell about this incident. Business income loss. Only at this stage now, the income starts to be understood. What's the impact of your practice? How long have you not been able to operate, or how long has business been impeded? We use specialist loss adjusters then help you, and they understand your balance sheet. We do we work in consultation with yourself and your accountants and try and put you in the same place you were financially if the ransomware attack hadn't happened. Cyber extortion then might or might not get paid. It's here at the end. We see a timeline from left to right on this slide. This cyber extortion wasn't paid in this instance. So we did pay the data recovery costs, incident response, and business income loss expenses as well. But no ransomware. That's why I have these 3 red boxes and 1 orange. There was no liability claim, and there was no fines and penalties. So this claim cost $500,000. Can you imagine if your business had one of these claims and had to pay $500,000 just because of some ransomware, just because the backups had been corrupted? How would you operate? How would you treat your patients? This is a very real thing. One more last attack. Very similar phishing attack. This is a motor company, slightly larger revenue, $250 million, with incident response costs. Again, business email compromise. And the reason I put this example here is because they were looking for money. They did take the database, but they're looking for money. Business email compromise, BEC, is where they send fake emails to the person in charge of usually accounts payable or payroll, and are trying to trick them to send money to the criminal. So they think they're sending it to a legitimate person, where ultimately they're being redirected to a criminal. Okay, so it does happen. In this case, they went after, through business email compromise, they were looking to try and get some money straight away. They didn't get the money, they stole the data, and again, they encrypted that data, and this company had to pay some notification costs as well. We talk a little bit about how you access that help again. I won't go into that in too much detail. I did say we have a huge array of vendors. We don't want doctors to be left alone. We don't want small business to be left alone when these attacks happen, and they do happen to you. So I talked about this cyber alert app that we offer all our insureds, but we have this in just a small amount of the vendors. We have this array of vendors that can help you in Malaysia. They're at call. We have contracts in place with all of them, and they're here to work to Chubb service standards to make sure you can continue to practice your core business and not have to worry about fixing that IT network. Okay, so they work in consultation with your team, but they're experts in their field. They know what they're doing. So when you do suffer one of these malicious attacks, they're there to help you. And this is, I think, where the true value of the cyber insurance comes into place. I've talked about some costs of claims, and we'll also send you a link. I've got this slide up here because it's always a question that comes through is how much insurance should I buy, or how much is it going to cost me when I have a claim? So we've created this website. It's called the Chubb Cyber Index. And you can go to this website and put in some calculations into a website through a calculation tab we have, and it'll actually tell you the likely cost of a cyber claim for your business. Just to help you understand where these costs might flow. This is just an extract of other information we have on the slide. It tells me, it's only very small, the bottom right-hand corner tells us that professional service companies are actually the most attacked industry on our books at the moment. Healthcare is in yellow. It's the fourth most attacked industry in Chubb's book globally. Okay, so I put it up there because I wanted to highlight the fact that we do now have some third-party backed information, as well as Chubb's own information from 20 years, to start providing some credible information on what a potential cyber breach will cost you as a small business. That's all I have at the moment. I don't think I've spoken too long. This is my LinkedIn profile, my name. Please reach out to the JA team if you need more information, but hopefully there's a chance also to ask some questions. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me on a Saturday night.
Thank you, Andrew, for the very enlightening talk. I think a lot of us haven't given much thought to cybersecurity. I mean, perhaps some of those watching may be GPs or either solo practitioners or small group practice. And do you think they're really vulnerable, or would there be larger hospitals, hospital groups, where the criminals would prefer to attack? Because that's where the money is.
I actually think there's two types of attacks, or two broad types of attacks that are taking place. One, they're targeted attacks, where the criminals go after certain targets because they know they can extort them and there's value. And this is where I think the large hospitals fall into this space, is because they know if they stop that hospital's network working, then they can't admit patients, they can't treat patients, and the hospital is really left with no choice to say, how do we fix this or get out of this? And then there's that drive-by attack. The second group is where by that small business is more a random attack that's happened through malware that's just in the wild at the moment. And this is where I think small business, rather than being targeted, are being hit very, very regularly, because this malware, like you see on the slide in front of you, is out there already. These links have been sent about COVID. An employee, a GP doing some work, could click on one of those links, and before they know it, their network no longer works. And this is happening very, very regularly. So again, to think that just because I'm a small business, I don't have anything they want and I'm not where the money is, it's not true.
Okay. I hope that doesn't scare GP practices who are still paper-based from computerizing. I suppose if they're paper-based, they'll be very, very safe. But if they are computerizing, say, would it be worse off or better off if comparing between standalone databases, or just a local network for their patient electronic medical record versus a cloud-based one? Which do you think is safer?
That's a very, very good question, and it's a double-edged sword. Okay, so there's a couple of different schools of thought.
Oh, sorry. That's in fact that's one of our doc viewers have actually asked the same question. Great minds think alike. So how vulnerable standalone?
I think it's a great question. So the short answer, if you're prepared to pay the extra money for security that cloud-based service is offering, you should be buying and getting extremely good security from that cloud-based service. But usually what happens is people don't think the security is worth it, and they take the cheaper option or don't enable all the security features that have been given, and therefore they're actually getting no better security than they could deliver themselves through their good own IT security posture. So good security is up to the individual to make sure they're putting the correct computer hygiene measures in place. So cloud-based security should be providing very, very good security, but please ensure you do turn on all the security features that are enabled. If you're using the cheapest option and think it's just about saving cash flow, ultimately you will be losing patient records, and you'll have very limited recourse against that third-party service provider, because the onus will generally be on the user to turn on the security features that have been provided to you. There also is a school of thought, and this is strange thinking. Many years ago, when we had valuable things in our house, so maybe some of us were lucky enough to have, we'll say, some gold or a very old heirloom, we'll say an old watch or brooch or some jewelry. Usually we keep that in our house, safe to us. Usually we keep that maybe in a safe or somewhere very safe in our house, because we believe that is the safest place for it. The thinking there is, if you want to put this data in the cloud, what you're doing is, with that very important data, you're actually now saying, no, let's give it to a third party to mine. So I think there's a different thought process there as well, is if that data is so crucial and important to you, do you actually want to hold it and make sure you're the one who has complete ownership and operational control of it? There are certainly instances where companies have outsourced, very, very large organizations using cloud services have had data stolen and compromised because that cloud service didn't operate as intended. I think in the last week, Amazon also had an outage, and I believe they suffered one of the largest denial of service attacks recorded to date yet as well. So if you rely on their cloud service to provide all of your networking, even they get compromised sometimes and still can impede your business. Hopefully not too long a question, but just short that answer again. If you enable all the security features of a very good, credible cloud provider, you should be getting very, very good security features if you use them correctly. But if you're scrimping on those network features, you might be better off keeping that information yourself on your own servers and just using that cloud as an alternative backup system.
Would you say the standalone system would be more vulnerable to attacks by phishing, clicking on links? Let's say an employee in the clinic clicks on the link and then it infects the local computers. But that's not possible if it's a cloud-based solution, isn't it?
It should not be possible. That's correct. So if the local-based network is set up correctly and with correct employee training, that risk should also be mitigated as well. What you should be getting is looking at good backup procedures. So making sure you have backups being conducted regularly, testing the backups, having those backups kept off-site, separate to the network. So even if all the PCs in your practice are compromised, you have a backup that's not connected to your network. And when you know that, you can go to that backup to then reinstate your business after having experts come to you and understand how the ransomware infected your network, or the malware, I should say. It's not just ransomware, infected your network. And the cloud service, you should be able to call up that cloud provider and have that service done as well. But again, only if you've set up all the security features that they're offering you. If you haven't set up that cloud security features, then the data you have might well have been compromised as well. And you have to ask that cloud provider then to try and reconstruct as well, potentially at further cost to the GP.
There's a question on Slido. Is it true a Mac is less likely to cybercrime? I guess that's in comparison to Windows.
Yeah, no, that's right. So Windows, Linux, I think the short answer is yes, it is meant to be true. But then when we look at the numbers and you start to analyze why that's true, you look at the size of the market that uses Macs or iOS, and the size of the market that's using Microsoft products, and you look at them, is it because there's less money, because there's less users who use Macs at the moment, and the criminals haven't yet pointed their evil ways to setting malware up to infect such a small population base globally? So there might be some reasons for that as well, and they're debatable. But I've heard from several experts, it is generally true.
Okay. There's a question from Facebook. Is there a cyber security subscription for GPs? I think that refers to the medical indemnity. I think you mentioned, Andrew, that Chubb does have cybersecurity indemnity and support, and I think the J Assure Dr. Shield does as well have some cyber protection. But you mentioned there are also other options beyond what Dr. Shield provides. Sorry.
Yes, so we do. So Chubb does have a full comprehensive insurance policies that can insure GPs against these cyber perils. So our product that JA Assure will issue, can arrange on your behalf, is called Cyber ERM2. There is a small indemnity grant within the Dr. Shield policy, but it doesn't offer the full cash flow protection that I believe GP should be looking at. So out of the options, I think the Dr. Shield policy, extremely good policy for the medical liability risks that GPs face, with a small liability for cyber, whereas cyber insurance standalone, that again JA Assure can offer, is a comprehensive cyber insurance product that can be offered to provide its cash flow benefit for GPs.
Is there a cyber security monitoring agents? I'm not sure what he means.
So we don't include that with our policy. What we do offer is the forensic vendors and experts to help rectify the damage that could be offered. In terms of subscriptions, I mean, the website I have on the screen, I'm not sure, no, we can't see the Kaspersky map on the screen. That's just highlighting some of the real threats that are taking place in the world today. And subscriptions. There's a company in Malaysia, I think Sisam is one I can probably put your GPs in touch with that could offer these services. I know in the region, Kroll also do offer some service and risk assessment tools. Another company, GM Consulting. So if if the listeners are interested, I can put some names of companies in the region that do offer these assessment services if that's useful.
Any other questions out there? I think recently, I mean, in Malaysia and Singapore, what are the most common ways practices, both small and big, get attacked? Is it only phishing through email links, or is there any other way which comes to mind?
It's only phishing through. No,
Email,
sorry.
is that just links other than email links which you mentioned? What are other ways so that we can be aware of,
It could be through mobile phone, fake Wi-Fi spoofing. They find a weakness because of the Wi-Fi network that's being offered potentially by the practice. It actually could be. I mean, cyber insurance could trigger just because a GP lost patient files on some public transport. It doesn't necessarily need to be IT. There are some triggers also when you're patching networks. It could be the patch was incorrectly run and actually deleted data or destroyed data, so we have a programming error. There's denial of service attacks, so where the network can't operate because it's being bombarded with, say, illegitimate network traffic that just stops it working. So it's not just ransomware. There are a number of different attack vectors.
Somebody's asking on does using a VPN offer any protection for cybercrime?
It does offer some protection. We recommend using a VPN. A virtual private network when you are particularly accessing networks remotely. So protects those open ports that networks have, which the criminals have been preying on. This is getting to more detail around that is where I'd be referring to one of the cybersecurity experts to talk about other vulnerabilities that can still transpire even though you're using a VPN. The VPN is there generally, my understanding, is to mask your IP address, but it still allows you to connect the internet, and therefore you could still be downloading malware onto your computers, but it does offer a layer of protection for sure.
What if the hacker sits in our clinic, sniffs up the Wi-Fi network? Maybe that would protect to some extent, I guess.
To some extent, but if they're on your Wi-Fi network, it's more about how you've set up the layers of defense and where your data is being stored. Is it encrypted? Because they're usually interrupting the traffic that's running over that network. So even if they're on the VPN or on your Wi-Fi network, and there's patient records being sent through that Wi-Fi network, they're probably likely to be intercepting all of that communication and stealing the data or passwords to then get into the network anyway. So I mean, the criminals have been very ingenious of how they can compromise networks.
Yeah. Okay. It's coming to about almost 1 hour plus already, Andrew. I'm sure your throat is getting quite dry, so mine.
Yes.
But it's been an eye-opener, and I think it's something all of us need to be aware. I mean, whether we are GPs or working in hospital, I get so worried. I mean, I'm working in a hospital, and we read about these ransomware attacks where everything is paralyzed, and then we're all stuck because we can't use the EMR or whatever aspects. If there's ever, so we are so. We're very grateful for the IT team to keep things secure. I think, but you never know. I think the criminals are getting smarter and smarter, and doctors aren't very smart. Sometimes we are just fooled. I still remember these phishing links come from my colleagues, a very senior colleague. The typical email say, "Help! I'm stuck in Lisbon. Can you please send me some money?" And sometimes we fall for even simple social engineering tricks like that.
Yes, we do. Very much so. Forgive me, I'm going to take a photo there. But very, very, very much so. It does happen. regularly, and it's just one of the tricks is, I mean, you're stuck in Lisbon, criminals prey on this information. I mean, they'll steal diaries, they'll understand when it's time sensitive or pressured, and they'll pressure people to give information to help patients. I think the other thing, Alan, just hearing you say is you're right. I mean, doctors, small business owners, doctors are time poor. They don't want to have to worry about the computer network. It's someone else's problem. With the proliferation of cybercrime, it's becoming a very real problem for anyone who uses computers to operate their business. So I say, and I'm probably trying not to overstate it, but the threat is very, very real. And we know from the businesses that our policies had to respond to, it's very, very costly as well, and can put businesses out of business because of the cost that it can cause. So hopefully the questions, hopefully the session has at least highlighted that. Or for me, I've always been very interested in trying to make sure that we are at least talking or asking ourselves questions about this. So don't think because it was okay 5 years ago, we don't have the risk now. These risks have evolved very, very quickly. So hopefully I've assisted with that discussion thought process for the GPs in Malaysia and the GPs on this call. As I know the team at JA can certainly help, and know we have some solutions at cost also to help ease any of the pain that's suffered if one of your GPs does suffer one of these attacks.
You showed your LinkedIn profile. Could I just show that again, Andrew, in case anybody wants to reach out to you?
Let's see it again.
I'll share. I'll share it on screen.
Can you see that?
I'll add this one then. Yeah. So you can look for Andrew on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to him if you have any questions. Okay. But anyway, I want to thank you. Yeah, thank you again, Andrew. I think for very good insight into cybersecurity implications when we lose patient data, implications for our practices, and something we don't think about. We sometimes take for granted. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I wish everyone out there, we've exceeded an hour, but thank you for staying on with us, and reach out to Andrew if you have questions. And if you want to know specifically about the cyber insurance package which comes with Dr. Shield, please reach out to JA Assure Dr. Shield. There's a Telegram group which we can which is linked from our bulletin board, so you can ask the guys at Dr. Shield what actually they cover in their medical indemnity as far as cyber coverage is concerned. So okay, Andrew, so I won't take too much more of your time. It's been wonderful listening to your talk, and great that there have been some good questions, and we hope that your questions have been answered. Okay, so good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.